Deep within Britain's forgotten mills, shadows whisper stories untold. Spirits linger where history haunts. Discover the 10 most haunted factories in the UK. 1. Hilden Mill, Lisburn, Northern Ireland. Just outside Lisburn in Northern Ireland, nestled along the banks of the River Lagan, lies the skeletal remains of a giant, Hilden Mill. Once the largest linen mill in the world, it was a place of pride, purpose, and prosperity. But now, its windows are shattered, its chimneys stand cold, its halls echo with silence. Or do they? Some say, if you stand very still, just inside the old weaving room, you'll hear something strange. A creak, a sigh, a whisper. Hilden Mill was built in the early 1800s by the Barber family. For over a century, it turned flax into some of the finest linen in the world. It employed generations of families, children, women, old men, all part of the machinery of industry. But in the threads of success were woven stories of hardship and tragedy. One story is still told in hushed voices, the tale of a young girl named Aileen. Only 14, she worked long hours beside the looms. One cold morning, her shawl caught in the moving parts. She was pulled in, instantly. They say, her cries echoed across the building. By the time the machines stopped, Aileen was gone. Since that day, strange things have been heard. Faint sobbing near the old weaving room, footsteps where no one walks, windows shutting on windless nights. One night guard said he saw a figure, a small girl standing in the hallway just before she vanished through a locked door. But here's what makes Hilden Mill different. There's no malice in the air, only sadness. Some who visit say they feel peace, as if someone is still there, watching over the place. Maybe it's Aileen, or maybe it's the spirit of hundreds who once worked, laughed, and lived beneath this roof. Today, Hilden Mill stands abandoned, but not forgotten. Local groups are working to restore it, to preserve not just a building, but the memory of every life woven into its walls. In every whisper of wind through a broken window, there's a story, and in every ghost, a life that mattered. Hilden Mill may be haunted, but only because it was once so alive. 2. Chirk Mill, Wales. Just a stone's throw from the Welsh-English border, where the hills roll gently and the river Ceiriog runs quiet, stands an old, forgotten building, Chirk Mill. To most, it's just another relic of the industrial age, a shell of red brick and ivy lost in time. But those who know the land, they know the mill still breathes, still listens, and sometimes still watches. Chirk Mill dates back to the 1700s, a water-powered flour mill that fed the townsfolk of North Wales. It later became part of the region's wool trade, a small but vital piece of a vast industrial puzzle. Many came and went, but one name stayed behind: Old Tom. Thomas Llewellyn was the mill foreman for nearly 40 years. A quiet man, tall and stern but respected. He took pride in his work and never missed a day, until one winter evening when he didn't return home. They found him near the millstone, his hands still clutched around the gear lever. No one could say what had happened. No wound, no fall, just gone. After that, strange things began. Mill workers, especially night shift men, reported hearing heavy boots pacing above when no one was upstairs. Tools would be found moved in the morning, gears realigned, almost as if someone was still maintaining the place. Local boys dared each other to sneak in after dark. Some returned, pale, shaken. One swore he saw a tall man in a cap staring from the second floor. He blinked, and the figure was gone. They say Tom still walks the floors of Chirk Mill, not out of anger, but out of duty. It's said that when a storm hits, you can hear the echo of grinding gears and the steady thump of boots pacing the rafters. Not a ghost in torment, but a man still doing the only thing he ever loved. Today, Chirk Mill stands in silence, its roof sagging, its stone worn. But if you walk by at dusk, you might just feel a presence, steady, calm, watching. Not all ghosts are here to scare us. Some remain to remind us that commitment doesn't end with life. In the heart of Chirk Mill lives the spirit of a craftsman, one who never clocked out. And perhaps that's the most hauntingly beautiful legacy of all. 3. Cold Harbour Mill, Devon. Nestled in the verdant hills of Ufcombe, Devon, Cold Harbour Mill sits quietly by the River Combe, its tall chimney still standing like a sentinel of the past. At first glance, it feels like a time capsule, and in many ways, it is. Because unlike most mills you'll find on a list like this, Cold Harbour still breathes, still works. And perhaps that's why the ghosts here have never quite left. Established in 1797, Cold Harbour Mill has operated almost continuously for over 2 centuries. It spun wool, produced military uniforms, and clothed an empire. Today, it remains a working museum. But those who stay late or wander through when the crowds have gone often speak of something else, a different kind of story, a quieter one, a haunted one. The engine room, long considered the heart of the mill, is said to be the most active. Engineers have reported soft whispers, sudden drafts of cold air, and tools that shift untouched. Some refuse to work alone in that space, not since one man felt a distinct tap on the shoulder, only to turn and find no one there. But it isn't just the machines that stir. There's a woman, seen from time to time on the upper stories, Victorian dress, pale face, motionless, watching. She disappears if approached, always silent, always still. No one knows who she was, but amongst the staff, they've begun calling her the Spinner. They say she's looking for something or someone, and yet, strangely, no one ever seems afraid. Visitors often describe a sense of comfort here, as though the spirits are simply carrying on with their shift, clocked in for eternity. One night, a volunteer claimed he heard the rhythmic clatter of looms long after the final machine had been powered down. He didn't flee, he stood still and listened. Cold Harbour Mill reminds us that not all hauntings are curses. Sometimes they are echoes of pride, of craftsmanship, of community. Not ghosts trapped, but ghosts devoted. In every hiss of steam, in every turning cog, there lingers a memory, a life, a soul that helped build something enduring. Cold Harbour Mill is more than a museum. It is a living tribute to those who refused to be forgotten, even by time itself. For Chattaly, Whitfield, Colliery, Staffordshire, in the heart of the Staffordshire moorlands, beneath the soot-stained skies of Stoke-on-Trent, lies a place where darkness was once not feared, but lived in. Chattaly, Whitfield, Colliery. At its peak, it was the largest deep coal mine in Britain. Thousands descended daily into its blackened tunnels, seeking coal, wages, and a way of life. But today, the mine is silent. The tracks are rusted, and yet it still whispers. Over 150 years of mining left behind more than shafts and slag heaps. It left behind stories, and some say souls. The first reports began after the mine closed in the 1970s. Tour guides and security staff began hearing knocks from deep within the sealed tunnels. 3 knocks. Always 3. Others reported hearing coughing, wet rattling, echoing from empty shafts, as if a miner, lungs full of coal dust, was still down there struggling for breath. The lamp room, once alive with chatter and clinking helmets, has its own presence. Visitors say they feel watched. One guide, alone after hours, felt a hand grip his arm. Firm, urgent. Though no one else was there, he never went back. And then there's the cage lift, the one that took men down and up. Except one day, it didn't come back up. A collapse, 6 men trapped. Only 2 survived. To this day, the lift shaft is sealed, but some claim to hear its chains clatter at night, as if it still waits to rise again. But here's what's most haunting. It's not fear you feel at Chattaly, Whitfield. It's reverence, a deep, quiet respect for the men who gave their lives not in battle, but in work. These weren't ghosts seeking vengeance. They were fathers, brothers, lads barely grown. And maybe they're still here because they never stopped watching over the mine or each other. In every echo beneath the earth is a story of sacrifice, and in every shadowed tunnel lives the courage of ordinary men. Chattaly Whitfield is not just haunted, it's hallowed. 5. Korthin Quarry, Wales. High in the grey hills of Snowdonia, where mist rolls low and silence settles deep, you'll find a valley carved not by time, but by hands. Korthin Quarry. A sprawling slate mine, where echoes still cling to the cold, jagged walls like memories. It is beautiful and utterly haunted. Slate-built Wales, it roofed the world, and it cost thousands their health, their limbs, even their lives. Korthin was one of the most dangerous, a place of darkness, both literal and lived. They called it the slaughterhouse. From the mid-1800s, men and boys as young as 10 descended into the belly of the mountain. Explosions, collapses, flooding, all claimed lives. Some bodies were never recovered, some names never spoken again. But their presence still felt. Urban explorers, hikers, even locals, all tell the same stories. A sudden chill in the air, murmurs in Welsh echoing through empty chambers, a lantern flickering, then snuffing out without a wind. One climber swore he heard singing, a low male voice, steady, mournful, singing an old Welsh hymn in perfect pitch. When he turned the corner, there was no one there, only stone and the distant sound of dripping water. But perhaps the most chilling tale is also the most touching. A young boy seen crouching near the underground lake, pale, silent. He looks up and disappears into the rock. Some believe he's searching for his father. Others say he's simply waiting for someone to come back for him. And yet, no one reports fear, only sadness and awe. Because the spirits here aren't lost, they are woven into the slate itself. In every crack, every shimmer, every echo, the mountain remembers them, and so should we. Korthin Quarry isn't just haunted by ghosts, it's haunted by resilience, by song, by the quiet dignity of those who gave everything to carve beauty from darkness. 6. Kennel Vale Gunpowder Works, Cornwall. Deep in a wooded valley near Ponsanooth, where moss hangs like curtains from the trees and water rushes over broken stone, lies a place long forgotten by most, Kennel Vale. Now a nature reserve, peaceful, almost enchanted. But it wasn't always this quiet, because here, more than a century ago, the air was filled with smoke, fire, and screams. This was once a gunpowder factory. Built in the early 1800s, Kennel Vale produced black powder for mining and war. And it did so at a deadly cost. The workers knew the risks. One spark, and everything could vanish in a flash, and many did. Accidents were frequent, violent, unforgiving. One explosion in 1838 killed 5 men instantly, their bodies thrown across the valley, their names etched only in fading ledgers. Locals say the trees still lean differently where they fell. Today, walkers and photographers explore the ruins. Stone buildings crumbling into the forest, iron railings rusted and bent. But some report something else. A presence. Voices in the trees. Not angry, not loud, just there. Rustling through leaves with no wind. Soft footsteps behind you, on a path you know is empty. And sometimes the smell of sulfur, sharp and sudden, right before it disappears. One woman claimed she saw a man in old work clothes bent over the water wheel. She blinked and he was gone. Another visitor reported hearing a loud bang, as if from a far-off explosion, followed by the crying of a boy. She left without finishing the trail. But perhaps the strangest feeling is how alive the place feels. Not haunted in the way you might expect, but watched over, as if those who died here never fully left, because their story wasn't finished. Kennel Vale reminds us, even beauty can rise from tragedy. Even in silence, echoes remain. The forest has reclaimed the powder works, but it has not erased its ghosts. They are in the trees, in the stones, in the river, and perhaps in us when we choose to remember. 7. Quarry Bank Mill, Style, Cheshire. In the quiet village of Style, along the gentle curve of the River Bollin, stands one of the best preserved cotton mills in Britain. Quarry Bank Mill, a place of brick and iron, gears and steam, and memories. Some warm, others not so easily forgotten. Founded in 1784 by Samuel Gregg, Quarry Bank was a marvel of industrial innovation. But behind the ingenuity, there were children, dozens of them. Orphans, paupers, apprentices. They lived here, worked here, and some died here. The apprentices, some as young as 9, were bound to the mill by contract. Long hours, no family, little rest. Their beds were in cramped dormitories, their playground, a narrow yard behind the weaving shed. Some never left, and it's said a few still haven't. Visitors have reported hearing the sound of running footsteps, light, quick, across wooden floors in the dead of night. Others say they've heard quiet sobbing near the dormitories where no children sleep anymore. One staff member recalls locking up for the night when a small hand tugged at her coat. She turned, no one there. Just the sound of distant machinery, long since silenced. Then there's the boy, often seen from the corner of the eye, darting past windows, standing at the base of the great staircase, silent, watching. He wears no shoes. His eyes are tired, and then he vanishes. But there is no terror in Quarry Bank's ghosts, only longing. A presence that aches, not for revenge, but for remembrance. Today, the mill is a museum, a place of education, reflection. Children now visit with their families, laughing where others once cried. The rooms where they once slept are open to the public. The stories once buried are now told aloud. Perhaps that is why the spirits remain. Not to haunt, but to listen, to hear their names spoken, to know they were seen. Quarry Bank Mill is more than a monument. It's a second chance to give voice to those who were once silent, and maybe, in doing so, we set their souls free. 8. Wemill Stockport. Along the River Mersey, where Stockport's red brick buildings meet the soft current of the water, stands Wemill. Weathered, silent. Its broken windows reflect a time long gone. But beneath its calm exterior, there are whispers, especially by the river. Wemill dates back to the late 1700s. For over 2 centuries, it spun cotton, feeding the hands and mouths of thousands. The river powered the wheel, and the people powered the dream. But water, as it gives, can also take away. One of the oldest stories tells of a woman. Her name was Mary. She was the wife of a weaver. They lived in a cottage just beside the weir. Her husband Thomas worked long hours in the mill, often coming home soaked and shivering, his lungs choked with dust. Until one night, he never came home at all. A collapse in the carding room. He was gone instantly. Mary was never quite the same after that. She was seen every day from then on, standing at the river's edge, staring into the weir, quietly whispering his name. And then, one morning, she too was gone. Today, those passing the mill at dawn sometimes catch a glimpse of a woman in grey, still as stone by the water's edge, just where the weir curls and churns. She doesn't speak, she doesn't turn, but if you look closely, you might see her lips move, murmuring a name long lost to time. Inside the mill itself, workers from the redevelopment project have reported strange occurrences. Footsteps echoing through empty rooms, cold spots where sunlight should fall. One engineer dropped his wrench and swore he heard a soft voice whisper, "Thank you." He left early that day. But like many spirits that dwell within these old industrial bones, Mary is not feared. She is mourned. Not a ghost of rage, but of love. A love too strong to dissolve in water or in time. Weir Mill stands now as a quiet reminder that the lives shaped by labor were not just marked by hardship, but also by joy, by loss, and by deep, enduring devotion. And sometimes, love lingers, not to haunt, but simply to wait, for the river to return what it took. 9. Willington Mill, Wallsend. Tucked along the banks of the River Tyne in the town of Wallsend, Willington Mill once echoed with the steady rhythm of industry. Grinding stones turned without rest, powering a workplace that helped shape the identity of the region. But beneath the roar of the machinery, there was something else, something quieter. Whispers. Locals still tell tales of strange sounds. Voices drifting on the breeze from the river, laughter echoing in empty corridors, and footsteps that seem to follow visitors along the old mill paths. One of the most enduring stories is that of a man in worn workwear, often spotted at dusk near the old water wheel. He appears and vanishes like mist, and occasionally, there's the faint scent of pipe tobacco in the air. Some say he was a mill worker killed in a tragic accident. Others believe he's a guardian of the site, watching over the river and the town he called home. Those working on renovations at the mill have reported tools moving without explanation, lights flickering for no reason, and even the sound of a distant whistle, as though signaling the start of another long shift. Yet despite these strange occurrences, no one speaks of fear. People who've experienced them describe something else entirely, a quiet presence, a longing, a desire not to be forgotten. The ghosts of Willington Mill remind us that behind every monument of industry are the lives of real people, people with dreams, with families, with stories that deserve to be remembered. These spirits aren't here to frighten. They're here to remind, to whisper their history into the winds of the Tyne. 10. Millennium Mills, London. On the banks of the River Thames, amid the towering cranes and shimmering glass of modern London, stands a relic of the past, Millennium Mills. Once a thriving flour mill, it powered the city's bread and life for decades. Now it's a skeleton of concrete and steel, empty, yet alive. Since the 1930s, Millennium Mills has been a symbol of industry, and later, of decline. Closed in the late 1990s, it became a magnet for explorers, artists, and stories. Visitors report strange sights and sounds, shadowy figures glimpsed in broken windows, distant footsteps echoing through vast, empty halls, and an ever-present feeling that the mill is watching. One urban explorer spoke of a piano playing softly, notes drifting through the dust, even though no one was there. Another heard laughter, faint, joyful, from the far end of a long corridor, like children playing in a forgotten room. But these are not just ghost stories. They are echoes of the mill's past, echoes of the workers who gave their sweat and hopes here, of families who lived nearby, and of a city always changing, always moving forward. Millennium Mills stands as a testament that even in decay, there is beauty, that even in silence, there is a story waiting to be heard. Its ghosts are not trapped. They are waiting for the city to remember, waiting for renewal. And as London reinvents itself, so too does the spirit of Millennium Mills, a reminder that from ruins can rise hope. The past never truly fades. Its echoes live in every shadow. Thank you for joining Creepy Experience. Like, subscribe, and keep exploring the unknown.